Oh, y'all caught us dancing. Sorry, not sorry.
Business face on.
Yes, scene. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this afternoon's Fearless Friday edition of the Intimacy Advantage TV show featuring Naketa Ren Thigpen, and my homegirl, Annie P. Ruggles.
I feel like we shouldn't have apologized for dancing. We should just
Like,
keep dancing.
not-
Considering, like, we got onto the pre-call dancing. It's Friday. Like, we don't need any music. We have each other.
We have each other. And normally, hey, Jessica's here. She's like, where is Naketa's music? She usually is playing the L-A-L-E-X-A that I can't say because, you know, she'll start talking to us. She's a stalker, really.
Yeah, she is.
I can't do it. She just starts talking to me and I'm like, I'm not even talking to you. I'm talking to my other friend with the same name.
You.
Stay in your place all day. I love you. I know Jessica's laughing at me so hard right now because every time we join for any meeting, I'm playing some kind of love song in the background all day.
Not today. We were just slow dancing to nothing.
We were having a good pre-conversation. Very excited for tonight's Coming to America release.
Coming to
Part
America.
2. Part 2.
Well, I love this. Like, it's coming to
exactly.
America.
Which is interesting. So you guys don't know, and thank you for joining us, all of you that are coming in live and on the replay. We know it is a wonderful afternoon on a Friday, which is why you're getting all this like really silly energy from us because we want to wake you up and get you into momentum. But Annie has a very dope podcast that includes 2, just not the number 2 in that way, but it's 2 legit to quit podcasts, whoop, whoop, which I love. So all of you are well over 30. You have heard of 2 legit to quit. Does it ring any bells for anyone? Is it coming to memory? Can you think of like a pop icon, song, anything that's making you think of it? Well, as you're trying to figure out what it is, and I'll wait for you to drop it in the comment section, like, what does that remind you of? Why would she name her podcast that? I'll let Annie tell you a little bit about her podcast, her show, what she's doing, and specifically what she's doing different that she made me have to have like 3 months in advance notice so I could figure out something to bring because I am very special. Annie, take it home.
You are a beautiful and unique snowflake. So yeah, my show is called Too Legitimate to Quit because I don't want MC Hammer to sue me. I do want MC Hammer to endorse the podcast, and he is on Clubhouse, so I'm going to make this happen this year. That's my promise to your community is that I will stalk MC Hammer just enough to get him to sign off and also probably tell me that he will not sue me. But what I love about the show is that it is at its core a small business strategy podcast, as I am a small business strategist. But I find really weird evidence and examples and inspiration in the nerdery all around me. And I thought if I can pull marketing stuff out of Golden Girls, let's see what else anybody can pull stuff out of. So Naketa's going to be on the show in May talking about this phenomenal, depressing movie called Malcolm and Marie, which is not a love story, y'all.
It is not.
Naketa's good friend Keisha is going to be on the next episode talking about Coming to America 1. But every time we try to make sure that we can pull something actionable out of those pieces that we love so that we can double that enjoyment. And also I can hang out with people right where their nerderies collide.
Hashtag nerd for life all day long. For life.
You may as well own it.
Well, you have to. Like, I embrace my weird. I embrace my nerd. It's a part of me being intimate with myself and building that deeper connection with my truth. Right?
I'm wearing shoulder pads.
So. You're not wearing shoulder pads. You're not, Annie. You're not. Okay, you are. Okay, all right.
That's my truth.
I cannot. See, you guys have no idea. This is like real life Annie. Like, this is really how she is from the very first time we met through every single interaction on and off Clubhouse, like all of it. This is really like she's dead serious. I told her in our interview that we had recently on her show, Too legitimate to quit. Thank you for correcting me because I shortened everything. I turned everything into an acronym. You lucky I
Oh,
didn't
I
just call it
wanted
like
it to be too legit.
TLTQ. TLTQ.
Well,
That's
which
what I
is
would have
what I
said.
do, but like with all due respect to Mr. Hammer, I don't want to.
Yes.
I don't want him to sue me.
But then you gave it away. You said MC Hammer. They were going to
I'm
try to guess.
sorry. I'm sorry.
Dang
I thought
it.
Naketa, I
Dang
thought
it.
maybe one of your listeners might have a personal connection to MC Hammer and can help me in my plight. Meanwhile, all of these poor
That's
listeners
true.
are being like, am I not supposed to be learning something right now when it said I'm listening to this Muppet and shoulder pads rant about MC Hammer?
No, trust me when I tell you that everyone appreciates this moment that we're having right now. Like considering like the heaviness of where this show can go sometimes, and considering the topic, like sharing the pain and the intimacy of all that's connected to it in life and business.
Yeah.
We needed this moment for sure.
Because we're talking about pain today. So.
Yeah, and what's the opposite of pain? Laughter, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have to be in a push and pull. So you actually said something that made me think about from you starting your show, which I think will dovetail us right into some of the amazing things you do. Because I digitally stalked you, as I do everyone, right? Always, I have to digitally stalk you. And I saw that you on Instagram have one of the many things that you kind of level out as what you offer is you're like, I'm the non-sleazy sales strategist.
Yep.
Which I have to say rings so much positive energy to it because we know that selling is serving and that it's very powerful and helpful to do for you to create the impact and the ripples that you want to do in the world, to own your value and all the things. But when you're on the other side of the table and you are coming to this awareness that you have to have these conversations even before, like on paper or on type or wherever you're writing this stuff, even before you pick up a phone call, and your social media, your website copy, your landing pages, like all the stuff that I know is your background to help people with, like in all of your years as an expert.
Yeah.
And doing that, the nervousness that comes up for people when they have to feel like, well, I want to get into the pain points. I want to share the story. I want to share my journey. I want to share my client's journey, and kind of writing case studies and examples. They do start to feel sleazy and some of the issues that come up. So I love that you say I'm the non-sleazy sales strategy, like not happening over here. Just it's not happening. I love that you do that. So I would love for you to share like where that came from more, because when you brought up Golden Girls, I thought I never think of Golden Girls as sleazy in any kind of way.
Oh no, it's not at all in that. Yeah. But Sophia is a phenomenal storyteller.
I love her. Mm-hmm.
And Sophia, though, will tell you a story and she will go on the trajectory and everyone will be like, Ma, follow the light, like come back. but she's really, really good at painting a picture to prove a point. And so one of the first pop culture things I ever talked about was how to sell like Sophia in terms of your storytelling, right? And there's nothing sleazy in that at all. But I had to find examples of non-salespeople doing sales things beautifully, because the vast majority of what we have been shown in society, in culture, coupled with our own personal experiences of being sold too badly, if I try to go find a salesperson on a show, that person's probably going to be an ass.
Yeah.
Like it's hard to find great examples of wonderful selling in pop culture. So what I have to do is I have to find other sales skills, like the softer sales skills that I see where I'm like, ooh, this person's really good at handling objection, or this person's really good at the quick bond. This person's really good at being vulnerable in themselves in order to build trust. Like those are the things that I can see in the examples around me. But in every single thing from, very famous movies like Glengarry Glen Ross, which is all about selling, to Animal Crossing, which is a Nintendo game that I play, like all of the salespeople are terrible. And so that's why it's no wonder that so many people are sales avoidant, which is my main area. Yeah. Because why wouldn't you be? If you're a heart-centered, value-driven helper person, and you have it in your head, rightfully so, that selling is this manipulative, toxic, aggressive act, then you're going to say, I don't want to do that, but I just want to help people. So what I'll do is I'll just try to market more and more and more and more and more. And I lost years in my business that way. And then I watched my clients do it. And it was like this beautiful, horrible, sad blessing of watching my clients struggle when I knew they shouldn't be, because it was easier for me then to reflect on my own growth and my own struggle and go, wait. If every single one of my clients has sales avoidance, if every single one of my clients is encountering resistance when it comes to selling, then this might have a lot more to do with me, right? Why are they drawn to me? Maybe it's because I have the same thing. And so I had to eradicate sales avoidance for all of us.
Yeah.
But I'm grateful for their struggle because it also helped me highlight my own, and then I can fix it, right? Then I can get to the core of it. Then I can solve it. Then I can find out all the reasons why people hate sales, everything they're concerned about, how to undo that, what we need to unlearn, what we need to replace that with. But in order to do that, I had to be able to go, something's not right here.
Yeah. That's tough. So what I heard you say out of all of it was noticing what was a hole in you, some version of a hole. And I think we talked about this too in one of our many conversations, like that hole in you that was attracting people to it that you didn't want to. You were attracting them at a part of their process that you didn't think that you were reflecting out from your hole, like an empty space. When you think, what is that show? I'm horrible at this. You know that I'm horrible at this. The movie where Robert, he plays the weird genius guy who has the diamond thing in his chest, and he becomes a robot thing. What is that? Iron Man. What is wrong with me?
Nothing is wrong with you. You are just not up on the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Clearly. Okay. And I've seen Iron Man, like I should know better, but Iron Man, like before he had his little diamond thing in there, when there was a hole, it was empty. And that emptiness needed something to pull into it, right? And so sometimes, because we're talking about business and sales and all the things, but think about in your personal life, when you have an emptiness that's there that you may, like his was big and huge and, visually glaring, you couldn't avoid it. But most of us stay so busy, the B word that I hate using versus the B word that I love, boundaries. We're so busy doing stuff and filling our lives with buffers that we don't even notice the hole. We don't even notice that we're attracting people that are mirroring our pain to us, our own challenges, our own hesitances, our own issues, and we're constantly like attracting them to fill the hole and wondering like, why do I keep attracting these people that are having these challenges that shouldn't be challenges? Because logically, skillfully, from your experience, it doesn't have to be that way. But it's still that's something that's going on. And I love that you pointed that out. Like I had to get right with me, figure out what was going on with me so I could go ahead and tap into what I already knew was valuable. I already had the skill to fix it, to not have the issue. But there was something else there. So I have to dig a little bit deeper because, this is Intimacy Advantage. So we go deeper in everything.
Honestly, I think part of it looking back was...
Jessica said, come on, Iron Man. Go ahead.
But I think looking back, like what it was between my clients and I that was like forecasting that and getting more, and I still have these clients as my friends and I still care about these people and their success,
of course.
But I think what happened was we formed this very typical codependence that kept us in this idea of if we're constantly working and if we're constantly checking our work with each other, my clients to me, and if I'm constantly producing and my clients are constantly absorbing and telling me that it's good, and if I'm going out and I'm learning the very best stuff and I'm making sure what I'm teaching is excellent so my clients are benefiting, sort of, we can continue off on this little ecosystem feeding off of each other for forever. But then what happens, just like in any codependent enmeshment thing, we're like, whoa, hold on, my boundaries are where? They don't exist, right? And that's part of the thing of why I specifically teach sales to empaths, is because that boundary is so challenging, but you have to be able to have the separation to sell to another person. You're not selling to an extension of you. So when you're all emotionally connected, which is what we want, there still have to be mechanisms in place to go, wait, but hold on, we're not the same person. I'm a service provider. I'm a professional. You're coming to me with a problem and I need to be compensated for that, right?
Right.
And
Absolutely.
so I love that you brought up boundaries, because that is a huge part of what can make win-win selling possible is you go to the point where the relationship feels real,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And feels meaningful and powerful and valuable and can change things for people. But you don't go to the point where you violate the boundaries of your business, you violate the boundaries of your time and your energy and all of those other things. And so that's one of the other things I had to do as I was learning how to sell is I had to own the boundaries of my business. And honestly, I've been in business in different iterations for like 7 years before I
Yeah.
thought the word boundaries.
Yeah.
And now my whole business, I'm writing a book about boundaries. Boundaries are everything
The
in
root. Mm-hmm.
selling and in life and in relationships, right? It's all about where I stop, where you begin, and how we're going to treat each other. And that's why I wanted to talk to you about this idea of pain,
Yeah.
because one of the main misconceptions of selling, or one of the main sleazy areas of selling, is the way that pain is talked about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's like very much like camp A or camp B. And a
Yep.
lot of people feel like A is the only option. And it's not. But when you are that involved in someone's life, that earned intimacy is, for lack of a better word, powerfully
Yeah.
dangerous,
Yeah.
right? Because it's so vulnerable. They're at such a vulnerable point. But you can take pain and turn it into empowerment in that conversation, which is what we're going for in non-sleazy selling.
Absolutely. And I was putting up, I'll put it back up, Nikki Nash, who we love. We love
We love
Nikki. Nikki is a fan here. We love her. We're a fan of Nikki, should I say. She said, preach boundaries, because God knows we know that that is like the root of everything, to your point. Exactly. All day. To your forward moving point around pain and how we have to earn that right to enter into someone's story, to their life, to hold space for them to share their pain. One of the challenges that I hear a lot from lots of the ambitious women in business, and those few brave men that come along and share that they're having some struggles in their personal and or relational life, when we look at their business, because we link that what's going on in your bedroom does impact you in the boardroom, right? Like it's showing up in your innovation and your leadership style and your performance, like all of it. To your point, a lot of that stuff is showing up in what they're willing and not willing to share when they have to sit with someone like you, who's an expert at helping them extract the information so they can share it in a way that appeals to the right person that they're really trying to call forth. We love the people, but we're not trying to work with all the people. We're trying to write with the right person that brings out the best in us so we can bring out the best in them. One of the challenges that comes up a lot for anyone who works in a space where they get access to earned intimacy, to those vulnerable parts of people's lives that you were talking about earlier, is, well, I don't want to say anything that outs someone. I want to be really careful. Like, even when the client directly gives you the testimony, which of course, when they say it on video or they give it to you in writing, you basically have permission to use it. And you don't necessarily have to give context. But when you're trying to do your normal copy, get your those quick 3-second pull, like the subject line, the headline, all of that, and they have to pull from it. A lot of people are really nervous that they're going to break someone's trust. Has that come up for you? Yeah.
Oh, of course. I mean, and it still comes up for me because that's one of the areas where I say, if you're anxious about something, great. It means you're not a butthead.
Mm,
Do you know what I mean? Like, if
yeah.
I am concerned about your privacy, if I'm concerned about your boundaries, then great. It's always in the back of my mind. And I have OCD, like actual OCD. So for me, it comes up like I was on a podcast the other day talking about a client that I had like 6 years ago. And I was like, did I share any proprietary information? Was there anything backstage that I shouldn't have said? And I got really nervous. And I was like, no. Everything I shared was public. I don't have to make any apologies. I can share this far out. I don't have to ask for an edit. Like, it's fine. Everything's fine. But even I, who like talk about this stuff all day, was like, oof. But the thing is, the only thing that I ever think about when I'm talking about how to talk about pain sensitively is I want everyone to picture a volume dial in their head, an actual dial, not button up, button down, but like an actual dial. That dial is called detail. And when you are trying to really ratchet up the pain point, then you want to ratchet up the emotions of the detail. But when you're trying to protect someone else's privacy, protect your own privacy, tell a broader story, then you turn down the volume on the detail and up the volume on the emotion. That dial is the only thing you need to fiddle with in order to find the appropriate way to talk about the pain. If you're worried about something, take their industry out of it. Take the place they live out of it. That's all just detail. And at the end of the day, I may be interested to know that someone else lives in Chicago because I live in Chicago, but that's a detail I don't need.
Right.
I don't need to know someone lives in Chicago. I need to know the emotions, the resident emotions of the problem they solve are the problem that I have. So that's why it's that dance within the boundary. That boundary is skirted by detail and emotional detail. And when you can get crystal clear on your own pain, on emotional detail, then you are going to create copy that make people go, that's me. You are going to create things where people feel safe because you were vulnerable about how you felt. And you can also bring humor into the mix then, because a lot of this stuff is stuff that we have to laugh about so we don't cry about it. Right. But what we don't need, and total trigger warning on this sentence, but I have written hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of about pages. Hundreds. It used to be my whole job. It's like people would come, they'd sit down, they'd tell me their story. I'd play Sally's stenographer and I'd read it back to them.
Right.
A lot of people are in the business they're in because they have experienced trauma and they want to make sure that people don't have to have the same experiences that they do. They want to help people that are now where they were then. Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so from a selling narrative standpoint, when you were in that place is important. But you have some people that show up and they're like, well, how did that make you feel when you were abused as a child? And they say, it made me feel really bad. Right. And then there are other people that show up and it was like, I was abused by my father. This is his full name with his middle name. Here's his social security number. Here's his prisoner incarceration number. And here's his trial kit. Like, whoa. Right. I don't need to know that, because unless you're specifically working with other victims of childhood abuse, even then we don't need to know your dad's name. We don't even need to know it was your dad. A family member would suffice. But what we actually need is the picture of how you felt in key moments. The moment when you realized you needed to change, the moment you realized that support was available to you, the moment you saw the first turning point of that support, that's the emotional world that they need. That's the understanding of the pain that you've experienced that they need. They don't need your details. Your details are your own.
Woo! Okay, so we have a maraca moment right here. You know how I feel about my maracas? I know somebody listening to this.
That's like, why I just made a sleazy sale. I just made an
exactly.
Right?
That was so good and so powerful and such a valuable breakdown, especially when we're thinking about how intimacy of your own story, of your client stories, with anonymity, obviously, if you're not given permission to do that, being very mindful, with you giving that visual of the dial was extremely helpful. What you also hit a major hammer, bell, you hit the bell with it. I know. I have so many trinkets. It's like, I'm so ridiculous, Annie. It's ridiculous. My clients are like, what's your next prop? What are you bringing out right now?
Well, it's not a shoulder pad. That's only on this side of the camera.
It's not a shoulder pad. Although I do have all kinds of things. It's not a shoulder pad. But you brought up the reality of trauma, right? And a lot of people, regardless of whether it was physical, financial, emotional, sexual, all the layers of trauma that it was, many of us have grown into a place where we can now help people not necessarily have to experience through the turmoil that maybe we had, because I'm a multi-survivor, right? All of the layers. However, if you are still processing some of those emotions, like you said, that emotional dial, especially if you're processing two specific ones, the shame and guilt. For most people, if you have not really released that shame and guilt, like truly released it, you fall into secrecy, which will show up in my business, right? Because if I have shame and guilt around very personal things that they have nothing to do with me selling bells to you, right? Or, you know, whatever it is that my product or my service. But if I'm dealing with that, it will inhibit me from performing at my best level, at being honest when an Annie P. Ruggles in my world is with me. I've invested in her and her programs. I've done the free masterclass. I just popped that in there, by the way. But you know, right? That's coming up. Make sure you guys check that out. Make selling easy without getting sleazy. Like, I've done the things. I'm excited. I realized that I want to work with Annie. I've hired you. And then we sit down and have the conversation, and I'm holding back.
Yeah.
I'm holding back on giving you what you need to help me shine, because I haven't processed, dealt with, moved through, because you don't get over it. You move shame and guilt. So I'm so grateful that you brought that up, because
that's a boundary too, right? Because you said, you know, if you haven't worked on the shame or guilt, or you still have stuff to go on, but we know, like you just said, it's never completely gone. We continue to work through it. Like, the goal of your marketing should never, ever be, and I have seen things taught this way. I actually forbid it. The goal of your marketing should not be to re-traumatize yourself.
Right. Exactly.
That is completely masochistically unnecessary. That is another form of marketing martyrdom. You do not need to do that, nor do you need, there are also other people, like especially people that have had history of familial abuse. Like, if your sibling is going to read this page and get traumatized, then you need to know if that's a boundary that you're willing to cross. Is that a boundary in your business? Because that's all the same thing, right? Because they're like, well, I don't care if I talk about the fact that so-and-so happened to me. I'm over it. But it's like, well, but hold on. You have children, and you're talking about your child's father on this sales page.
What, or
grandfather or whatever, right? And all of my examples of bad people in this have been male, and that is not for any reason. But I'm saying, like, we got, there's no need to open your veins on a sales page. There's absolutely not. But instead, what if you could say, instead of opening those veins on the sales page, to say, there have been so many times when I thought about ending my life.
Right.
You don't have to say, when I was 18, I took a bottle of Tylenol and lay in the bathtub and did all that. That's detail.
Right.
But if you say, I thought about doing this, I couldn't picture this. And that's why I always tell everybody, write your stuff down in internal dialogue. Write it down in ways that you were feeling, ways that you were thinking. Like, if you were thinking, like, if I was thinking, my business is never going to be profitable and I wasted 8 years of my life. That is a very different detail than my business is not doing as well as I would hope. So if I come to a sales page and says, I used to be really frustrated because my business wasn't doing well, and I go to the same sales page and it says, I would literally lay awake every night until 3 a.m. grinding my teeth into stumps, trying to figure out why my bank account was overdrawn. Same story, different detail.
Yeah. And visual.
And visual, and also within my boundary.
Yeah.
Because I didn't tell you anything about what happened when I couldn't pay bills. I didn't tell you anything. I can. If I want to crank the dial up, I can get real specific about all the bills I couldn't pay, all the times that stuff got bounced, all the times that I embarrassed myself trying to sell. Sure, I can lay those things out there, but it's not about me. It's about me saying, I felt this way. Do you feel this way? If you feel this way, here's what they're telling you you're doing wrong. You're not. It's not your fault. Your support. Come get some. That's what we want. We're telling about our pain as a tuning fork for their experience.
That is powerful, and I relate to that. I relate to a lot of that. The stories, the finding the change in the house to put gas in the car. Like, don't get me started. Like, we can go into some
Yeah.
detail, but I totally relate to the visual of how you said you can share with that emotion when you're tuning for it, so to speak, raising that dial without necessarily re-traumatizing yourself if that's not something that you process. Because on the other side of that shame and guilt is what we call alpha, AFA, which is really your anger, your fear, and your anxiety. When you have unexpressed alpha, that comes up so deeply for people that it raises their adrenaline. And that's why some people will be like in a moment of conflict, whether it's conflict with a team member, a conflict with their forever love, a conflict with a potential client, like, because that comes up, and the conflict comes and they'll start shaking. They can't get their adrenaline is rising and they don't really know how to express it. And for many who push that down, and now it re-expresses itself as depression.
Yeah.
And that becomes a whole nother layer of things. And a lot of it literally came from you over traumatizing or re-traumatizing yourself with something that you weren't really ready to turn the fork up, because we hear the I don't know what to call it, not an analogy, but the metaphor of like your message, right? Like we hear that stuff all the time. Yeah. And there's truth to it. Yeah. There's truth to where you came from can be super helpful for someone who might be going through it. And you can give them some lessons and some tools and tips to avoid a couple of those tight corners that you bumped into if you share it. But if you're still in the thick of it, you're traumatizing yourself by trying to pretend, the fake it till you make it, pretend that you are further along than you are. And now you're following a sales guru, a strategist, a business, whatever the title is, marketing, whatever. You're following them and they're like, oh, pull it out. No, it's not emotional enough. It's not painful enough. And you have to be really clear, to Annie's point. And, the B word literally is my favorite B word. Boundaries. You have to be clear about your boundaries with yourself, and you want to call forth the people that you truly can help, not the people that y'all going to be sitting in body trauma together,
right?
And you can't really help them.
The awesome thing about it is, take everything that I just said about how to turn up the dial on your own detail or turn it down for the boundaries. That exact same stencil is how you can approach clients with their pain points. Don't ask them for detail, ask them for emotion. Say, what was it like? What did it feel like for you every day? What did it feel like for you? Were you sleeping? What kind of dialogue was happening in your head? Even if they don't want to tell you about the name of their abuser, which, why would they tell you that? That is not your business. That is not something that you need to know in order to write a sales page, people.
Right.
But you could say, in your dark moments when things really were feeling nasty, what did you long for? Because that's not even saying, hey, what was your saddest thought you ever had? You're saying, in that sad, nasty place, what were you calling out for? What were you praying for if you pray? What were you trying to manifest if you try to do that? What were you desperate for? And they'll say, well, I just wanted to X. And you go, okay, I also just desperately wanted to X. And in my experience, when I remember the experience of desperately wanting to X, I wasn't trying to call in this. I was trying to call in this. So for me, it was this, right? Even if it's not perfectly parallel, you take that piece that they give you, and that's what you share on. That way you're creating that emotional landscape. You're painting that picture together without violating either of you.
I love this. So here's a question, because we know that, and I'll put it in here again, that to continue with you, to learn more, to go deeper, they can just join your free masterclass, Make Selling Easy Without Getting Sleazy. And everything's there in the link. Please go follow. It is free. Get what you need. Continue on. Get additional guidance and support with Annie P. Ruggles. And for this moment, for anyone who's listening to this live or replay whenever they come upon it, and they are like, yep, I hear y'all. Y'all ladies are amazing, blah, blah, blah. And I'm still not sure how to get the stuff out of my head. Like, how do I get I'm just trying to express X, to your point, out of my head? What would you recommend if they were to do something, even if it's a small first thing, if they were to do something over this weekend that's hopefully not time consuming because selfish Saturday and all, like, what would you recommend that they do?
Look at what you have out there and look specifically at the detail. That's really where I want people keying in. And if you don't have content or copy yet and you're just starting out, then what I recommend for you is what I call the Goldilocks test. Write 3 different versions of your story. One that is only for you. If this is going to re-traumatize you, don't do it. Right? Be very, very aware of yourself, but write the story that is your truth for you, and then burn it, get rid of it. It's not going onto your website, but that is just to show you where that boundary is. That is your non-negotiable. Do not cross this line. Do not share these details. Number one. I like it. Then I want you to go all the way to baby bear, and I want you to write your story with no detail and no emotional specificity at all fact, all blah. And then I want you to go, okay, well, hold on. These are the barriers of the things that I have to relate in order to get this across. These are the things that I can't do. That's how you're going to get that middle, mama bear balance of detail and fact and pain and benefit all in there, is if you're going to try to play with those different layers. If you already have a lot of copy and stuff like that, then I want you to look at if you are painting that emotional world. If you need more detail, more dialogue, more visual, right? More what your life was like. If you're putting anything on your website that you don't want your loved ones to read, your children to read, your forever love to read, anything like that, take it off. You don't owe anyone your details. You don't owe anyone your specifics. So that is where I want you to start. And I want you to honor those boundaries in you so you can turn around and honor those boundaries in your clients and your prospects without shying away from the pain point. Because if you do that, we're all terrified of talking about pain because we don't want to be jerks, right? We don't want to hurt people. We don't want to re-traumatize people. We don't want to do any of that. But if we don't sell, including the pain, we look like Pollyannas. We look like we have no clue what's actually going on in their lives. And we shoot the value we provide in the foot, because at the very base, what we all are is problem solvers. So just look at those details, look at those boundaries, and it will keep you in line when talking about your own pain and their pain too.
No, I love it. I think the Goldilocks test, is that what you called it?
Yep.
I think that should be done regardless of whether or not you have current copy or not, because if it clearly makes sense if you don't have copy and you're like maybe rebranding or creating a division. But even for those of us who have been around for a long time, you could, because you're so used to your own story or you're so used to your own skills and gifts, you can easily have become more fact-based and lost some of the emotional connection, the actual intimacy that you need, because there is such a thing as customer intimacy. And that correlates with your prospective customers as well, which I know is a huge part of what you teach. But it's really easy to feel like you've been saying the same story for so long. You've been doing all the things because maybe at one point you really were good with being that mama bear middle. And then because you've spoken 1,000 times, in a week, you and I do a lot of podcasts between our own podcasts and then on other people's shows that we're privileged and honored to be guest on. But that's a lot of, tell me about yourself. Tell me about yourself. Tell you about you, right? Like over and over again.
Well, and every now and then something falls out of your mouth and you're like, why did I just bring that up? Like I was interviewing something the other day and I was like, I remember this thing my high school boyfriend used to say. And I was like, why is this? Where? Like that stuff's going to happen too.
It is.
But that's all the more reason. Like, am I thrilled with myself that I mentioned my high school boyfriend? No. Do I think he's going to hear this? No. Did I consider the likelihood of him hearing it? Of course I did, because I'm a nut and that's what I do. But like, okay, at the end of the day, somebody says like, oh, hey, Annie brought you up on one of her podcasts. Is that going to kill me? No. That's within my comfortable boundary. It's just right on the edge. Right. But if I know that, then I'm not going to say something in the moment that wounds me, because I'm going to know where that line is, where that perimeter is.
Yeah, no, that's really powerful. I was thinking as you were talking, earlier today, and it's actually still going on right now. There's a boot camp that's happening, and all day today, and it's been amazing. So you're more amazing, which is why I stepped out so we could do this and have this moment. But it's
shoulder pad.
all of it, all day, and the dancing and the joy and the good feeling and energy that I get from you. But they were talking about pattern interrupts, right? Like just, being disruptive to your normal programs, your normal launches, your normal masterclasses, whatever it is that you do. And they were speaking about it from all kinds of different angles. But what you just said, like even the little small, like where did that come from? Like that edged thought of a very long time ago X. Sometimes those pattern interrupts help you tap into another part of your story. Hopefully that isn't traumatizing to you, but can give some fresh energy to the conversation when you're constantly sharing your story over and over and over again. Because I do think that that's why people start to minimize people who aren't necessarily stuck in shame and guilt and trying to be secret, but they start to minimize because they're like, I just said this 20 times. So they go from the 10-minute version to the 7-minute to the 6-minute to the 2-minute. Before you know it, the only thing they've said is like, hi, my name is Naketa Thigpen and I'm a balance and relationship advisor. Like, just skipped everything. Or they're like me and I tell way too much all the time because I've had a lot of therapy and a lot of processing.
It's
right?
The dial.
So I have to remember the dial because what's super easy for me is very overwhelming for other people. So, right? Like it's that dial.
Oversharers, not anonymous.
How about that? Like a non-anonymous. But you brought up such really good, crucial points. Like that Goldilocks test, I'm sensing it as a bit of an audit. An audit over all of for everyone that's in this group are business owners, business aligned, even the high level professionals that are in the group have some version of a passion project that they also work on. So just like looking at what does that look like for your nonprofit website, your actual for-profit website, your board memberships where you have to put out different things as a part of fundraising opportunities. Like when you have to speak about yourself, those tiny about sections that that are not the big website one, but those small ones that you have to send in your byline. If you're a guest blogger or guest writer, and you have to send, like really look at that, but use the Goldilocks. Like, I love this. I love the Goldilocks test for what your intimacy looks like in your copy. That matters. That's phenomenal. You're the truth, girl. You're the truth. I love it. I'm getting a lot of like, yes, such an amazing conversation. This is so good. Some really good stuff. And I know we'll have a lot more people on replay. So Annie, before we go, tell everyone one more time. And of course, I'll drop the link in here again for anyone who's coming in replay of how they can connect with you and any other last minute thoughts that you want to share.
If you are willing to trust a stranger, and you are struggling with this pain point dial, I want you to go a step further than signing up for the masterclass, although that would be excellent. And I know that you'll love it. It's 43 minutes of just bomb after bomb, I think. But DM me. If you're having a problem finding it out and you're willing to trust me, I will keep your details safe. I will help you find that limit. So you can DM me on Instagram at Anniepreneur. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Facebook through my business page, Annie P. Ruggles. But if you don't know where that boundary is, let me help you find that boundary because that really is the main step. And next time you're out and about and you need a great laugh, please tune in to Too Legitimate to Quit, instantly actionable small business strategies with a pop culture spin.
Yeah, I got someone. Hey, Felicia. She said, I came in at the end. I will be watching the replay.
Hi, Felicia.
Annie, check and tell me, did I spell your Instagram? I just did it off the top of my
head. Correct.
Yes. DM Annie. Get everything that you need. Felicia, I know you just joined. So yes, 1,000%. Watch from the top, including when we were dancing and being really silly. And I dropped Annie's free masterclass link to make selling easy without getting sleazy a couple of times in there as well. So make sure that all of you get it and share it. It's not just getting it here. Like you can't actually share things from the group to people outside of the group because our group is private, but you can absolutely copy it. You can copy those links and you can share it out. And if things get complicated or you're not sure, just DM Annie and I'm sure either herself or
I've got all kinds of stuff that you can have. I got whole libraries of stuff that you can have. Come on.
You're so awesome. You know I love you too much.
I love you to death.
We're so ridiculous on all the levels. I know if Nikki's still here, she's probably laughing too, because we were just doing a live yesterday. And for whatever reason, we couldn't stop dancing. Like, what is happening?
Why would we? We're being ourselves with our people. Why would we stop dancing?
How about that?
Some people work their whole lives to have the self-awareness that you and Nikki and I have worked hard for. And some people work even harder to try to find even one person that understands that truth. We got a whole family of it. So why wouldn't we be dancing?
Nerds, dancing, hot, awesome, brilliant, beautiful. What?
Shoulder pads.
We're so ridiculous. Thank you, Annie, for showing up and showing out on the Intimacy Advantage. You know I love you so much.
I love you back. It was such a pleasure.
You're amazing. If you guys have any questions that we didn't get to today that comes up now or on replay later, just put them in there, put hashtag replay if you're watching it later, and we will definitely come back. Annie will be in the group. I have to make sure that you get a link inside of here so you can come in and see your fan club and have a conversation and go and grow together. I hope this was meaningful. I hope this was supportive to all of you. And more than anything, I hope that you really understand that sharing your pain within your boundary is a form of intimacy that other people can benefit from. Just make sure you have your boundaries really clear. Trisha said, thank you, Annie.
You're welcome, Trisha.
Hey, Trisha. This is awesome. All right. We'll see you next week. Mwah.